Black in the City of London.
Hi, I'm here with Laura Sharpe and Cassie Harris-Hercules from the Florence Nightingale Museum, which is a hidden gem hidden near Waterloo, right by St Thomas's Hospital, to discuss how the museum is connected to and celebrates an iconic heroine in Black British history, Mary Seacole. Hello, Laura and Cassie.
Hello.
Hello.
Please, could you each tell me about your work with the Florence Nightingale Museum?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Laura Sharpe. I am currently the director of the Florence Nightingale Museum. I've been in this role for just over a year now. Prior to that, I was head of education for 3 years, and I also would portray Florence Nightingale for school groups. I led on the programme to sort of bring Mary Seacole to life and grow that programme alongside the fantastic Cassie.
Hi everyone, my name is Cassie and I'm an actor slash facilitator. So I basically embody and play the fantastic Mary Seacole in schools, in community spaces and in the museum as well for their public performances. Now it's me and two fantastic other actresses as well. But yeah, that's been my role for the last I think 3-4 years.
I've definitely seen the photos of you, Laura, playing Florence, and I've seen some photos of you, Cassie, as a Mary Seacole. So can I ask what motivated you to choose to bring Florence and Mary alive in this way?
So historically, the museum has often had actors portraying Nightingale. It's something that actually drew me to the job. I came from a theatre and education background. And it's a really fantastic way of getting the story across in a different format. Not everybody wants to read everything. Not everybody even necessarily wants to just listen. Having the character there gives a really clear narrative. It works so well, it just made sense to bring Mary to life in the same way, particularly as there are less objects to look at in regards to Mary Seacole. The only sort of known objects are based in Jamaica, not within the museum. So to be able to make it three-dimensional in this way and much more easily accessible to people of all ages, also people that English might not be the first language. I feel like theatre is a way to bring people together.
I just think storytelling is just an effective way for people to connect with a story, basically, as opposed to just obviously delivering facts and I just think that it helps people to kind of place themselves and understand the context of someone else's story, and you just evoke your memory. It amazes me when I've performed and done performances and how much people are able to retain because you've told them a story and they've been able to, as the person, and they've been able to experience the things that that person has experienced from that person's mouth. And I think it just makes it accessible, like Laura said, more memorable. It's just more engaging, really.
So I was going to say, we're not just telling them, we're involving people. They all have roles to play in the story. Someone takes on Mr. Day, you're helping to build the British Hotel. They're fully involved in the storytelling.
So when I came to the museum and witnessed, I believe your colleague Janet playing Mary, I had a little sort of, my son he'd had a bad day, my younger one. He was just lying with his head on my lap and watching and taking it all in. But he remembered so much from it. So really it did. So even as a passive experience or the active experience of being involved, being a participant, I think it's really beneficial. And I was very, very impressed by that. I also wondered, just as a subsequent thing, do the different actors that portray Florence or Mary, do they bring slightly different personalities to the character?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think everyone brings their own lived experience, but also the things that interested them the most about the character.
Yeah.
So Cassie's version of Mary is naturally going to be different to Janet's. They're different ages, they come from different backgrounds, and they find bits of Mary that they resonate with more. Likewise with the Nightingale actors. Cassie's definitely brings the energy of Mary.
I think it's just, as an actor, whenever you play a character, there is this sort of filtering process because it is your body, your voice, and like Laura said, the things that you connect with, the things that have resonated with you, your own interpretation. And I think there is obviously an objective interpretation of who Mary was and her achievements, what she did, but also when you read her story, you have your own kind of subjective interpretation of her personality, and it's just inevitable that they're going to be not slightly different. I think quite different interpretation. But it's fun. It's been really fun to see my other two colleagues bring their own interpretation of Mary. It's really inspirational and inspiring for me as well as an actor.
Explain what the museum does more generally, if you could, and also in terms of how do you go about dramatizing the history of these figures?
So the Nightingale Museum opened in the 1980s. We're based on the site of St Thomas's Hospital, which was originally the site of the Nightingale Training School. Fantastically for us, it's also the site that was chosen to put the stunning Mary Seacole statue. I'm sure you looked at it when you're here overlooking Parliament. So it's a prime location for us to be telling nursing stories. The collection began from the Nightingale Training School, so it's obviously very Nightingale-centric, but over the years we've been able to expand the stories that we're telling with temporary exhibitions. We've focused on other key figures of the Crimean War, like Seacole and Alexei Soyer, but it's really a celebration of strong women, but also nursing and the nursing profession. We run school sessions, we run events and talks, but definitely our public performances are one of the firm favourites with our visitors. Dramatising them is a challenge. It's something Cassie and I did together. We are incredibly lucky that the wonderful adventures of Mrs. Seacole in many lands exists. So we have Mary's own experiences in her own words. So for Seacole, that's where we started. We both read it cover to cover many times, and we tried to take as many of her own phrasings and her own words as possible to ensure that we were getting her voice as much as we could know it is. This did lead to some challenges. Obviously, some of her choices of phrasing and things are very off the time, things that we would not present to public today. So we did have to tweak it slightly. We had to sort of fill in some gaps with wider research, and then got it up on its feet, tried various iterations, tried it in front of different audiences, and sort of tweaked until we felt that we'd got the essence of her. Cassie, is that how you remember it?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was basically it. I think it was first of all just immersing ourselves in the research. And for me, I knew very little about Mary Seacole. I'm very ashamed to say. I just had, I'd heard of her, even though I have Jamaican heritage and my grandma was a Jamaican. I hadn't heard of her. I didn't like in detail. I knew of her. So for me, it was going to her autobiographical novel that she wrote and learning as much as I could about her, then reading other kind of biographical texts as well. And I had to do a bit of research about the times, the Victorian times, because I did not know much about that either. Exactly, just knowing, just understanding, women's rights or what schooling was like, or even just like what medicine was like in those times. I did a bit of that research, and then, like Laura said, Laura actually did the majority of the script, thank goodness, and I would just kind of glean over her text and just like give my 2 cents about what was written. But that was basically the process, because we had this fantastic reference, which was her own words, so that we could literally just write her monologue from. So that was really, really lucky. But yeah, that was basically the process.
You said there are a few objects that exist around Mary Seacole. Is there anything beyond her own written words? What survived her, or what did you find while you were looking?
So there are a few portraits, similar to the rest of her story. Many of those got lost in time. So the National Portrait Gallery do have the portrait of her on display, which is beautiful. The only objects that we've sort of been able to find existence of is her medals. There's a lot of misunderstanding around those. No one's quite sure the origins of them, how she got them, if they were gifted. And as far as we're aware, they are in Jamaica in the museum there. A couple of other objects related to the statue, so sort of more contemporary reflections of her rather than original objects. But it's why video and performance are so helpful to us to ensure that there are different ways to access her story. So you might have noticed when you visited in that section, we do have a drawer with all of the different herbs that she would have used, so things to touch and smell and engage with. We also have 3 different videos, so one around researching her by the incredible author Helen Rappaport. We then have the previous chair of the Mary Seacole Trust, Trevor Sterling, talking about the statue appeal, and then we have Cassie's shortened video as well. So we've tried to make it as engaging as possible without objects and ensure it's still being told in multiple ways.
I think we're kind of getting into this question. A lot of the stories that I've found through this podcast, through interviewing academics in essence, they've come at it from the point of view of having to engage in what they call critical fabulation. So like making stories from these historical artifacts and tales. And I guess that leads me to sort of just even go even a little bit deeper, because you are definitely alluding to it. Sort of, what are the challenges that you face when bringing someone like this to life? Like, clearly with Mary Seacole, we have her book, but there was so much character in the performances that I saw. I'm like, how do you make those decisions? How do you choose to make her prouder, or how do you go about that?
I think for me as an actor, when I try to glean as much. It's a bit like, I don't know, being an investigator. Maybe I try to glean as much as I can from her autobiography in terms of her values and her personality. And obviously, it is a subjective interpretation. And there is always going to be the problem of when you're trying to be as historically accurate as you can, but also you need to have some artistic license. For example, it's particularly when you're performing with children, because they are so inquisitive, and sometimes they've asked me, "Oh, but Mary, what's your favorite color?" And I don't want to break the illusion and be like, "Oh, I have no idea." I'm not.
It wasn't mentioned in the book.
Yeah, it wasn't mentioned in my book, and I'm not Mary. So I have to just say, well, what, you know, I remember just thinking, oh, I remember Mary mentioning this yellow dress. She goes on about this yellow dress. And I can imagine her liking the color yellow. She was a very vibrant personality. So when children ask me this question now, I say, well, you know, me love all the colors, but if I have to pick one, it's yellow. They're like, okay. I think that's always tricky, but I think you do need to have that artistic license, because obviously there are some things that are unknown, and we are interpreting who Mary was, because none of us have ever met her. And this is the challenge with anything that's historical. There is a element of having to interpret and form your own opinions about what happened and about a person.
We also only have how she wanted to present herself. So actually the book is very confident. She wrote it for financial reasons. She wanted to be shown in a good light. So we have had to be quite critical of some things in there and go, we don't know this is 100% accurate, but this is how she wanted people to see her. So therefore, actually, it's probably how she would have wanted people like us to portray her as well, sort of far more confident, brushing things off a bit quicker. We have tried to allude to some vulnerability within the performances while still keeping it sort of upbeat, but acknowledging that she did face a lot of hardships. We can't just skim over that. Oh, everything was wonderful. So it's trying to find the balance of how she presents herself versus digging a little bit deeper.
Finally, would you recommend this as an approach for other heritage spaces, particularly those that face the similar challenge of not having a plethora of artifacts?
Yes. I think you need to have the right actors for sure. I always prefer people with a facilitation background, because it's not just about portraying, it's about creating relationships with the visitors, making them feel comfortable to ask questions and want to dig deeper, but also knowing where you can make up an answer and when you can't. And there are some things we get asked that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to put those words in Mary's mouth. You have to kind of just go, I'm sorry, I wouldn't know. That tends to be more the adult questions than the children's ones. But it's, knowing how far you can stretch the character and not. So you need to have the right team and be willing to put in all the research. But I think it really pays off, and it makes it far more accessible. And I mean, I'm speaking for myself, as she was speaking for you too, Cassie, when I say it's really fun to do.
It is. It's I feel like it's the funnest job to do. For a long time as an actor, I really struggled with not doing something that was biographical because it just seemed so, I don't know, just unimportant. It's like, this is just fiction. I want to be expressing real people's lives now. But yeah, I just think even for me, when I've watched other performances, because before I became Mary, I watched several Florence Nightingale performances, and for me, like Laura said, it's just an accessible way for people to hear a story and to see themselves in history as well. That was that's the take I've taken away from it. I can see myself. And even as an actor, when I was connecting with Mary, I then was thinking about, my grandparents' experiences of coming to the UK in the 50s. You just interact with the information and the content in a way that is more emotive. Um, yeah, because someone has embodied and is embodying the facts, basically. So I think it's just the best way to teach people these important, pertinent histories.
Stay tuned for our next bonus episode when we interview Mary Seacole herself.
Black in the City of London.